là là là. L'état de la mer, les amis. Regardez, on a plus de 50 nœuds de vent. Ça tire. Oh, attention! Oh là 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 là. Oh, c'est chaud là, hein. Là c'est très chaud là.
Hello Seawolves! Welcome back to the show. I guess a little bit of a sad mood here at the start today with what happened to Pip Hare on board of her Medallia last night. I'm sure by now you've all seen the video that I posted separately. In short, if you haven't seen it, just take a look after the show. I won't include it here now because it's rather long. But so sad to see Pip lose her mast. But amazing to see that she's been able to get the boat under power with her jerry rig. And she's safe. The boat is relatively in good condition. And she's a little over 600 miles away from the nearest land, which is Tasmania, looks like. So no official word from the team as to where she will go, but I think that is the most likely option. So wishing her good luck with that particular journey. It's going to take her probably like a week or so to get there. So there's still some time to go to really get to safety. But she's an amazingly skilled sailor, so I'm sure she'll do fine on that front. So no need to really worry there or anything like that. She is safe. And I guess, thank you all really for the support. I'm sure also if you go to her YouTube channel and put some nice comments, I'm sure she can read it and will really appreciate the support from everybody. And when I know where she will actually go, I don't know, depending on what she wants and the team wants, maybe I'll also update you for all of the wolves that are kind of maybe on Tasmania or living near the area. Maybe when she gets there, you guys can run out and show her some support when she actually makes it into the marina. I'm sure she might appreciate that. Now, despite all of that, of course, I do hope that you have something delicious in your cup for good luck for the rest of the race. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers, wolves.
So we are Monday morning here in the Southern Ocean. Yesterday, Sunday, was a quiet day, so I took this opportunity to do some jobs, some works on the boat to fix a few little things. And since last night, the wind picked again, and now we have 20-25 knots of wind from north, hopefully northeast. So we are sailing towards the southeast, reaching quite fast because the sea state is still flat, so which is very good. And we still have Jeremy Bayou and Tomarion not far away to windward. And just behind us we have Sam Goodchild, Yannick Bestaven, Paul Meillard and Boris Herman now. So it's going to, so we just passed Tasmania Island, so now we are heading to the south of New Zealand in 2 days, I think. So the next 2-3 days are going to be like that, fast reaching. Unfortunately, I think the sea state will be a bit worse than we have now, but at least for now it's quite flat and fast.
So yeah, a pretty crazy night, and yeah, Pip unfortunately wasn't the only one. There was some real Southern Ocean carnage last night. Benjamin Ferré, skipper of Monnayeur, due for a job. He actually had his keel ram, so that's kind of the hydraulic engine that moves the canting keel up and down. Exploded on one side, so his whole inner boat was filled with hydraulic oil. Was a serious problem, and he was this close to also having to retire from the race, because if the keel really doesn't work anymore, it's just also not safe, especially with of course ultimately the Cape Horn coming up. So it was closed there for a minute, but he worked for basically throughout the night together with Jean Le Cam also, who was sailing quite close to him. And of course, him being one of the most experienced sailor, he's sort of like a go-to guy also for many of the skippers, you know, when they need help. So through the radio, he kind of relayed some messages and helped them out with some ideas. And ultimately, fortunately, they were able to get his system going again for now. So yeah, let's hope that that sort of stays stable and he's able to stay in the race. So yeah, a lot going on. Conrad Colman also making a nice update. He has some damage to his lazy bag and he had to actually climb the mast, which he was not too enthusiastic about, but he did make a video about it. Check it out.
Today I have to do something that I have been putting off because it scares me. I have to climb. Yeah, thankfully not too far, but still, anytime my feet leave the deck, it's not a good day. You got it. This is the lazy jacks that I came for. Oh, that's uncomfortable. Okay, let's not get those tangled, huh? Okay. So I gotta take this down with me. I'm only 10 meters up, but man, this is seriously uncomfortable job. Okay. Whoop. Foot disconnected. Come on, come on, come on. Come back. Okay. Okay, got it. Orange rope, gotcha. Okay. It's very uncomfortable, but the view is cool. Okay, coming down. Ooh. Good thing I've already had kids, huh? Okay, so why did I have to climb up there? Well, it's because the lazy bag, this here, that covers the mainsail, got destroyed in the last storm. And this loop here, they used to be attached, and then the stitching on the webbing here failed, and I let this bit go up to the sky. So now that I've got this this lazy jack back, well, I need to do some hand stitching to fix the bag, to then attach it, to then put the lazy bag back in action. So, wish me luck for the rest. But at least the worst is done.
Yeah, so and that kind of brings me to a question from the Q&A, I guess the first one, because somebody asked, like, how do the skippers actually climb up the mast? And you can kind of could see it in the video there. So they use what's called like a gris-gris. It's a system that mountaineers use, rock climbers use, and in essence what you do is you have this kind of grappling hook. So you have one line, you have one safety line, there are other things, but you have one. You're basically climbing up a single line. With a foot loop. So you have kind of like a little device. It has like a foot loop on it, and you kind of move it up on your line, and it has a loop, and you kind of stand inside the loop with your foot, and then you push yourself up so that you're standing, and then you can like move the whole system sort of up again, and you have a line where you can sort of pull yourself up for like about a meter. And that means that your foot line, what you're standing in, is going up again also, and then you stand up again, and then you move the whole system up again. And so by about a meter every time, you're just using your foot to stand up, re-anchor everything, and then you're pushing yourself up again by about a meter every time. And that way you're just able to kind of ascend up a line very safely and actually with fairly small amount of effort. So it's actually a super cool system invented by mountaineers, and that's what the sailors use also. The only addition is that they're doing it kind of against a mast, so they have a little bit more stability there. And usually they have one extra halyard, one extra like lift line that they use as a safety line. So they're also clipped on, so should anything happen to the line that they're actually on, then they're also still attached to the other line right next to him. Anyway, a successful operation for Conrad there, I guess. Ollie on board Toot Good, also very nice update, and shows again like they're dealing with some pretty crazy sea states right now in the back of the fleet again.
Happy Monday, everyone! It's Ollie on board Toot Good on day, I believe, 37 of the Vendeeglobe. As you can see behind me, it's again super windy. I should only have about 30-32 knots, but at the moment I'm sailing in about 45 knots. The last couple of days have been really exhausting, really windy, and it stays like this for another 3.5 days. And I start to definitely feel it. I try and always do some what I call sustainable sailing, where I look that I don't constantly kind of deplete my resources, but these conditions are nagging definitely on my resources. But then again, I say to myself, another 3 days of this, and then it calms down for 1 or 2 days, and then I should be leaving the Indian Ocean behind me and enter the Pacific, passing Cape Lewin. So all is good on board. Wishing you everyone a great week, and to finish this video off, I'll quickly show you a view outside. Cheers, bye bye.
Of course, Boris, also similar in some tougher weather now, bouncing around.
Ça bombarde. Disent les Français. French people saying it's bombarding. If you want some chats with the competitors here around. And the situation is today, Monday, we are in front of Justine and behind Yannick and Paul, and these small distances make a huge difference in the sea conditions. That's why we most likely see everyone in front stretch away and everyone behind fall behind. So the further you advance east, the better conditions you have, and the more quickly you're going to go through it, and the less worse it is. So Justine is just a little bit behind, and she has almost 10 knots more wind, storm drift, etc. And we can still say normally 2 weeks, day 3, and it's full on. Have a good Monday.
And that brings us to the Q&A part of the show. So here we go, so many questions. Okay, let's start here. From Bill Hoskins, who asked, please explain the different reefing systems. Thanks, great job with your coverage. Thank you, Bill. So actually there aren't really that much. There's the reefing system for the head sails and the reefing system for the mainsails, because they only carry kind of 2 types of sails on board. And so yeah, the head sails is pretty simple because they don't actually truly have reefing systems for those sails. So the way they reef the head sail, so that's the big round sails kind of in front of the boat, is by switching them out, right? So the boats have on board an A1 and A2. That's an asymmetrical 1 and 2. So those are 2 kind of different sizes, and the higher the number, the smaller the sail. So if they have very light winds, they'll fly their A1. If they have like a little bit more wind, they'll fly their A2. So that's just a bit of a smaller sail. Then if the wind gets even more smaller, they'll go to their J1. So that's their jib 1. Even stronger winds, J2. And even stronger winds, J3, right? And if it's light wind or a mix, they often put like multiple J's. So especially the jibs, they can fly 3 of them at the same time. I'm sure you've seen these footages. That depending on the direction of the wind, they can differ with that also. And the mainsail, that's kind of really the standard reefing system that all sloop rigged sailing boats have, because ultimately the Moccas are sloop-rigged sailing boats, which means that they have one mainsail on a boom, and what they do is that the mainsail, so from bottom to top, is kind of partitioned in 3 major parts. And so what they can do is, if they want to lessen the amount of square meterage, they get loose the halyard, so that's the line that kind of that lifts the sail to the top of the mast, and they lower the sail to like the second sort of split level, because on that particular line the sail is enforced with like holes for lines and another 2 attachment points, one at the mast and one at the end of the boom. And then they attach those points, they strengthen everything so that everything is well secured again, and then they tension the sail again from the top, so that it's like a harmonica. So just like on the bottom, it sort of harmonicas in and gets smaller and smaller, and those partitions are, it differs from boat to boat, from sail to sail, but in the case of the Moccas, there's about like 2 meters up for each reef. I think the biggest one is like 1.5 meters or something. The top one is like 1.5 meters, so it's a bit different heights, but it's quite a bit of square meterage reduction, right? So every time they take the sail down like 2 or 3 meters, you're reducing quite a bit of square meters to lessen the load on the mast and on the rigging. So that's kind of the 2 systems that they have. Then John Baxter asks, what do you think are the main motivations the skippers have that sustain them through the many extreme challenges, physically but also mentally, of the Vendeeglobe? Also, you continue to amaze with your ability to explain the challenges the skippers face, some unique to offshore racing, but some in common with all human endeavors. How the human reacts to the unexpected. So well said. Okay, so yeah, okay, thank you. So your question, how do they get themselves through all of the extreme challenges? Well, I guess Pip today is a great example of that. And yeah, there is no rule book. There is no real guide. It is true that many of the skippers, and that's kind of a new addition to this edition of the Vendeglobe, that they work with kind of not psychiatric counseling, but with like psychiatrists to kind of learn how to reframe situations and sort of be very mentally strong. So again, this is a bit an initiative of each skipper individually, like what they want to do with that. But there's also just within the race, they're constantly trying to update kind of the important elements to increase everybody's chance of success. And one of the things in this particular race is that from the race control also, from the organization, there has been a lot of kind of openness, and you could say even a bit of a push for the skippers to take care of their well-being and to also be kind of well prepared mentally for the enormousness of this particular challenge, right? I'm sure that the people who have watched this the last time, they're a bit more prepared for the craziness. But if this is your first time watching the Vendeglobe, you may be getting to the point now in the race that we're like almost halfway, where you're kind of starting to get an inkling of like, I mean, the really tough stuff is still like 2 weeks from now when we get to like Cape Horn. That's usually when the rubber really meets the road, let's say. So the toughest part is still to come, but it is extremely mentally tough. It's an extremely long endurance race. And many of the skippers have done some mental preparation, have worked with professional people who know about the mind and how to make the mind strong, to be able to kind of deal with possible scenarios like what Pip has to deal with now, right? It's not just like a physical blow, but it's a mental blow, it's an emotional blow. And so, it's extremely tough. They have big teams behind them, people who are also, engineers, other people who are all dreaming of this, sponsors, like a lot of responsibility. So there's a lot coming together, kind of, a lot of pressure on the shoulders of the skippers also to do good. And so, they've taken a lot of measures this time to make sure that everybody is really mentally strong. But each of them has their own ideas and strategies on how to do that, right? And some people are, let's say, more mentally strong than others, or are more like just can sort of take it and get through. Others are more like have to kind of go to the low point. So everybody's different in dealing with that. Then multiple people asked, is Johan's chair an advantage? I don't have a name with this, but many people asked. I think definitely it is. Like that's also why I talked about it in the very first episode when I go through, all of the hardware additions for this race that are kind of like my personal, because nobody gave me a list, right? Like, hey, Florian, we need you to film like all this stuff because that's the innovations. No, I sort of go based on my own insights into talking with the skippers and the teams and all those different things of what I thought are like the most massive things to watch for. And the reason that I put so much emphasis also on this particular thing, like the chairs and the cockpits and how it's managed, is that even in the last Vendeglobe, I did this really cool interview with Hirma. He's a Dutch, basically the last Dutch guy who did the Vendeglobe on his own. So he was kind of a late entry to not the last Vendeglobe, but the Vendeglobe before that. Kind of came out of nowhere, raced the Vendeglobe, and so he had a very also fresh perspective, very much like a not in-crowd guy to do the race. And one of the things that he said during the interview, when I asked him, like, is there something you would do differently, something you would change? And one of the things he said is that, all of the skippers go into this like very bare-boned. It's very much like race culture to just sleep on a beanbag and keep it very simple, bring as little weight as possible, right? Minimize on everything. And he said very plainly in that interview, which was a little bit controversial actually at that moment, I think you could easily bring like you could invest 150 kilos in having like a really comfortable bunk and a comfortable seat to get yourself to this race. I think that the extra rest and focus would be a competitive edge and not a downside at all. I'm paraphrasing him a little bit, that's kind of what he said. And this is an idea, like we had a bit of a conversation about it, because it's a similar thought that I always had when I was watching the Vendeglobe, thinking like, yeah, I appreciate the Spartanic sort of, gun-ho kind of attitude that was always there in the race. And the boats didn't used to have like covers, and they used to be open. People used to be like in the actual water all the time. It was even much more crazy and extreme. But I always was watching it thinking like, but what if you just encapsulate the whole thing, get most of the controls inside? I mean, you're always going to have to go outside for maneuvers and stuff, but if you can mitigate it and you can rest good and you can have like a more comfortable place to strategize and everything, I always thought like this is going to be a massive advantage. And many people I think are now noticing it like in the demeanor of if you see Joon, for example, sort of hanging out, doing his thing, just the way how his cockpit is set up with good forward viewing and all this type of things. Like, I personally think it's a massive difference. If you're like from a calm place, rested, with good visibility, all these different things. So I mentioned it all the way in the beginning of this VG, that I think that his boat is very much like how I always envisioned like what the ultimate sort of VG boat would look like, right? Like at first we didn't know foils was going to be a thing, so there are definitely some things that I didn't even dream up. But as far as the general setup, it's exactly what I would have like if I had like 5 million, my 5 million euros. That's what I would build, you know. And many of the skippers before the race also have seen this, right? Like, wow, this is really cool. This is really an amazing way to bring lots of the evolution in the race together. And so, for my mind, it's definitely a major advantage. And Charlie has something roughly similar. He doesn't have the windows. He doesn't have the outside view. But he does have also a very comfortable, seating arrangement and things like that. So yeah, right. It's not like if you have that you'll definitely win, not by a long shot. But I do think we're almost halfway. That just looking at kind of how maybe rested and sort of you can really, I think, see it in the demeanor. Because you're not kind of looking through a small window at something, but you just have all the information all the time, that it does make a massive difference in the end. Okay, let's see. We have Dilata who asked, how does Antoine get on the mast without someone pulling him up? Okay, well, I actually already answered that question, I guess. Then we have Daphne Taylor who says, do the skippers ever encounter snow, hail, freezing rain while in the Vendeeglobe? Watching from Canada, I love your show. Thank you very much, Daphne. Yes, sometimes they do. Now it is summer on the southern hemisphere right now, so in general they are not getting the Antarctica winter weather, but of course always cold. It's always sub-zero there's always ice, several miles from them. So it is possible that like hail and stuff right now, not all the time, and so far I haven't heard of it, but it can happen. And in previous races also they've had snow, they've had like various, it depends a bit on what the storms bring and how much weather they kind of drag in from Antarctica, sometimes also as far as temperatures go. So in general not, like they're in temperatures that are very comparable to kind of like the autumn temperatures here in Amsterdam where I am, because it's on a similar, like 30s, 40s, 50s degrees sort of latitude, just on the opposite side of the planet. But our weather is roughly comparable. So the outside temperature right now with them often is like between 6 and 12 degrees or so. But the humidity is very high, and in the night it can be very cold, so like near freezing. And of course the water temperature is also very cold, it's also sometimes near freezing. So they get a lot of cold also through the hull coming up into the boat. So that's the answer there. Then we have James Aaron, I think. I'm surprised Boris never had 3 reefs and a storm jib on his yacht. I would think that's a standard setup when encountering very strong winds, perhaps because his boat is still new. No, actually, so this is something quite unique to this Vendeeglobe. Not that it never happened before, but so these boats can take an absolute beating, right? Despite what you may see with all the damage and stuff, they are built incredibly strong. Like, and having 3 reefs and a storm jib on an Imaka, we've seen this now with the previous very strong load that came over Charlie and Sebastian, etc. last time when they were also sailing with this setup. But even in the Vendeeglobe, that is fairly rare, because usually when they have a low, it will be like 45, something like that, knots in the gusts. But having gusts up to 70 knots, that's 25 knots plus, and the power doubles with every, so it's an exponential increase in the amount of power, right, with the numbers of the before scale. So the amount of power that is in 65 knots compared to even 45 is like a crazy delta. And so when IMACAs have to sail under storm jib with 3 reefs, that is very, that's literally, you know, sort of light hurricane level strength, right? Like 65 knots is like technically that's nearly, or maybe it actually is technically like in the level of what we would call hurricane strength if it was like hitting the coast near Florida or something like that. So it's extraordinarily strong wind. And so that's why they're doing that. And in the last VG, it never came up. So they had very strong winds, you know, up to maybe 50 knots or something, but not 65. So in that sense, it's a little bit extraordinary in this particular VG. Now, again, as far as having those type of wind speeds in this area, that's not necessarily that extraordinary. Right? It happens more often. But yeah, the race is only a few months on years that people are in there. So the chance of encountering a low that strong is relatively very low. And this time it just happened to occur. So that's why they're sailing with that setup, which is not so usual. Then somebody asked, oh yeah, a lot about technical reefing questions today. How do the skippers reef their sails without an engine? Because it's for the day sailors and the weekend sailors here. There's of course a cheat that many sailors you know, rightfully use, is to use the engine to kind of steer your nose into the wind whenever you want to reef or change your sails or whatever. And of course the skippers cannot do that. And so, yeah, they can't do that. So I already explained it in an earlier show. Literally the only way that the skippers have to depower, so to lower the amount of pressure on their sails in order to do maneuvers, whether it's like tacking or jibing or taking the sail up or taking the sail down or reefing, is to lower the relative wind speed, right? And so what they do, and again, lowering the relative wind speed, what I mean by that is, so if you have some, you know, the wind that's going like 10 miles an hour in this direction, and I'm going 10 miles an hour in this direction, relatively on board, I will feel a wind that's going 20 miles because you have to kind of add them together, right? I'm going, it's like, it adds to each other as far as the relative situation that you get. But in that same situation, if I can go 10 miles an hour and the wind is going 10 miles an hour, so now I got 20. But if I turn around, all of a sudden I got no wind on board as long as I'm going 20 knots with the wind. So the wind will speed me up, and then at some point I will literally be moving exactly with those 20 knots speed of the wind. And my boat will be going 20 knots, but when you stick your head out, you'll be feeling almost no wind at all. You'll feel like a little wind kind of flowing, but it will be quite gentle, right? And this is always the difference between sailing downwind. And so whenever the sailors have to do maneuvers like that, usually what they do is they just sail the boat downwind a little bit. So they just go, they just point the nose a bit more downwind in order to lower the relative wind speed on board, thereby lowering the amount of force that is directly applied to the sails. And once they found kind of the sweet spot, you could say, of really lowering, you know, as low as they can get it, then they can furl in the head sails, take them down and replace them with, you know, with another sail if they want to. So that's kind of reefing on the front. And the head sail is on tracks. So these have ball bearings, and they're very, they run quite easily. They're like very, they slide very well. So even if there's quite a bit of force in the mainsail, now of course there is a point where it's too much and they wouldn't be able to pull the sail down. But if they're sailing downwind and they can kind of sort of also with the angle, like if you pull the sail in enough so that the wind is not really directly blowing in the sail on the bottom side, only a bit on the top side, then it can be fairly easy. Depending again, in 50 knots it's different than in 10 knots. But then it can be quite doable to bring the sail down for reefing, and that's really the only option that they have. And in an extremely troublesome situation, of course, like if there was really like an epic disaster, they do have an engine on board, so they can use it if it's like an absolute emergency. But it's sealed, so they have a literal seal made on it. So if they have to break the seal, that sort of proves that they use the engine right, and it's a disqualifying thing. Unless they, for example, you know, last edition we had Kevin Escoffier Cartier, whose boat literally broke in half and he had to jump overboard, and he was rescued by Jean Le Cam. Now, Jean Le Cam had to activate his motor to do that, so he had to call race control, say, hey, you know, I'm going to, so that's like a legitimate reason to break the seal on your engine, use it. And then he was allowed, because they have an extra seal on board. So after that whole rescue operation was done, he was allowed to reseal his engine again. You know, and then it's legal to, let's say, use your engine. But in general, they can't use it for maneuver. So they just have to do it by the relative wind. And then the last question from ACC8063. Nice name, by the way. Pip spoke about the Australia Search and Rescue Zone. Is the Antarctic exclusion zone based on more than just ice? Sorry. Yes, so the ice exclusion zone, that's kind of what we all call it. But it's not necessarily only for ice. The exclusion zone is just, it's a safety zone, right? So the race control, based on lots of different factors, distance to the closest land, you know, the ability also for indeed rescue services to be able to reach certain places, you know, the danger of ice, the danger of other things. So there were many different factors that go into this kind of no-go zone, which we call the ice exclusion zone. But yeah, it's not based on one particular factor. There are many different things that kind of go into that. So yeah, that's the answer to that particular question. So yeah, that's it for the Q&A today. Now, before we get to the rest of the news and the Q&A, let's first do the technical update so we can spend some time on the rest later there. So yeah, well, as you can see if you guys jump in here with me. So Pip sailing here right now, still in 16th position. And as you can see, the wind is kind of going to be carrying her southwards. So the closest point is here on Tasmania. So most likely she'll take a course at something like this. But, you know, I don't know what the team is going to do again. It might be that she goes like somewhere else on the Australian south coast. There are a lot of different options that the team might consider for different reasons. So I guess we'll wait and see. Then in the front of the fleet, many of you have noticed that, of course, the race between the two giants in front, Jan Richomme and Charlie D'Alin, is definitely not cooled down. They're very close to each other right now. Richomme has gotten closer to Charlie to the tune of 25 miles. I think yesterday it was 60. So he halved the distance again between the two. And yeah, like I explained yesterday, so I think they made a very conscious choice to say in the same weather situation that Charlie is in. And well, as far as speed goes right now, yeah, Charlie is doing 19.5 knots and Joam is doing 21.1. So in the current moment, still again some gaining. And Sebastian Simon actually doing 23.5 knots. He's on his good foil again. So it is kind of an interesting battle to see that he's just so fast and pushing it really hard whenever he's on his good foil. So actually a lot of fun to see. Then the rest of the fleet, also what we talked about yesterday for the Boris fans. I guess good news there. Boris was still in 10th place and they got in around that corner here, like I said yesterday. Boris, by the way, doing exactly what he said he would do, taking a nice inside turn and not doing any like what the model was predicting yesterday. But you can see they are very, very close. And yeah, Boris is now 41, so he's about 40 something kilometers behind Paul Malott. So yeah, great advantage there. He put a little bit more distance between himself and Justine Matreau and Samantha Davis and Clarice also. But yeah, I don't know. He's definitely part of that first foiler group now behind the leaders. So go Boris, who knows, maybe over the next few hours. You can see that they have a new kind of weather block with this high pressure that's kind of right in front of it. So if it kind of all, you know, pancakes together there, that might be almost like a little restart for that particular group. And who knows, if Boris plays his card right, he might just end up being, you know, somewhere on the front of that group next time they get a lot of wind there. If he plays his card right, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so Pip, Benjamin Dutroux, Roman Atanasio, we already talked about that. You see that Roman, by the way, now that he's going much faster, of course, gained the 15th place now from Pip then. Damien Seguin, still no definitive word on the fix on his mast track, but speed-wise he's doing okay, 18.8 knots, so I'm kind of assuming that he's made a fix that he's at least sort of working on, that is sort of effective and allows him to sail pretty good. Jean Le Cam, well, the situation is, I think now more and more of you are starting to be unsurprised over the fact that the model every day says that, you know, the foilers, like, this is kind of like, if you want to like sort of have a picture, so here we have 3 beautiful modern foilers nicely in a row that for the last 3 days were predicted to overtake Jean. And right here you can see Jean, like he's, well, if we take the distance here, yeah, so he's about 70 miles ahead of this handsome trio here, foiling right behind him. So that is pretty interesting to see. And right behind there we see Benjamin Ferré. So what I talked about, obviously communicating with this group, and Jean here in particular, being just one of the kind of the, you know, the old knowledge masters, padre de familias in the group, you know, helping everybody out. We see Conrad here in some nice light winds, which is, you know, why he was able to do that mast climb today. Then we have Kojiro Shirishi here, still sailing very close with Oliver here. We have Antoine Cornick, and let's see where Emmanuel, Fabrica Madeo, then this should be, yeah, Dennis van Wijnberg. So he's still dealing with the wind sensor problem he had yesterday. No definitive update on that also. He is also sailing a little bit slow, so I think maybe still has that problem possibly. And last but certainly not least, we see Szabo. Yeah, you know, at least for now, sailing good. I haven't heard any additional updates on what is going on with him, whether they made a choice to, you know, maybe also go to the Cape or anything like that. He seems to be heading straight for there, but no definitive word. So if I hear anything, of course, it will be on the next show. But that's it basically for the tactical update now. Yeah, that's it for the Q&A today. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you again for your questions. And yeah, make sure to like, subscribe. Thank you all again for your support. Super nice to see. Again, I'll keep you posted if any news on the Pip Hare situation right now. And yeah, hope you have a great evening.